Okay, good morning, everyone. I think there's still a few people joining, but it's probably about time that we get going. Um, I'm Dave Worsell from Hello Lamp Post, and I'm here today to talk trash. Don't really have many sort of excuses to do this almost on a daily basis, but I think this is something that's sort of quite personal to me, and I think probably quite personal to everyone, I would think. Um, Obviously, residents have all sorts of issues with waste and recycling. I know councils up and down the country and all around the world also have issues with this as well. It's just a massive problem. Um, we'll take questions at the end. If you can see the Q&A box, please feel free to type questions in there. If not, just put them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. So hopefully, if everything is okay, we'll get going. So waste, as I said, is a massive issue all around the world. It's been estimated that the world generates about 2 billion tonnes of municipal solid waste annually, and this is going to increase roughly 70% to 3.4 billion metric tonnes by 2050. So obviously this is an absolutely huge problem that has really big impact on the environment, on climate change, on pollution, on people's health. It's something that absolutely needs to be addressed. Looking a little bit closer to home, I mean, waste management, it's a huge economic challenge for pretty much every town and city across the UK. The effects of managing this has huge impacts on time and labour efficiency, the financial cost of all of that waste management, and just in general, the total waste generated and where to put it. The local government association estimated that about £852 million is spent on waste collection alone. This excludes all of the other sort of services and things that are associated with that in terms of, customer services dealing with inquiries about waste management, missed bins, collections, and so on. DEFRA, in a recently published report there on waste and recycling during 2020, that paper said that the UK has missed its target to recycle 50% of household waste by 2020. The recycling rate for households has dipped over the last few years, possibly driven by the COVID pandemic, but the recycling rate has actually gone from about 45.5% down to 44%. So it's only a small but also significant reduction in waste and recycling there. In 2022, total waste from households increased from 22.6 million tonnes. The weight of waste sent for recycling was just under 10 million tonnes, and that was a decrease, again, 1.2% decrease from 10.1 million tonnes in 2019. The landfill tax is currently £98.60 per tonne, and this applies to all waste disposed of at licensed landfill sites. And again, UK municipal waste sent to landfill is 6.1 tonnes. So again, absolutely significant numbers that we're talking about here. The local government association said that of about 525,000 tonnes of household waste or recycling waste that was collected was rejected at point of sorting. So it means there's a huge amount of rejected and polluted waste going into the system. And for every bit of recycling that is rejected, there's a £93 cost of disposal through a sort of more traditional sort of energy waste facility. This equates to a cost of over £48 million per year in additional costs to local government. To put that into a little bit more context, County Durham has said that their contaminated waste has increased over the last few years. It's currently 35.8% of contaminated waste. They've issued 7,795 notices informing people of incorrect recycling and contaminated waste, and the cost to the taxpayer of dealing with that alone is about £1 million. Hampshire are also quoting the same figure. About £1 million in taxpayer money is going towards polluted recycling that's now going to landfill. And again, that doesn't include any of the staff time, dealing with the queries and things that go around that. I think before I go on, I'll tell you a little bit about Hello Lamppost and kind of put it into context. It's going to sound a little bit odd what we do, but hopefully after I've explained it will make sense, and then you'll see how this applies in the waste and recycling sector. So Hello Lamppost, we bring objects to life. So these can be any objects. They can be spaces, they can be physical objects like lampposts, benches, statues, basically anything in the real world. We give that object a voice and enable you to have two-way conversations with those objects. So these can be used to do a whole host of different things. In the early days at Hello Lamppost, we started off with, we actually won the Bristol Playable Cities Award to make the city of Bristol interactive, playful and fun. And the idea was that you could speak to street objects. They could ask you questions, you could leave your memories, what you think of the area and so on. And then we kind of moved on from there. As I've said, we bring all sorts of different objects to life. So these could be workspaces, public transport, so railway stations. They could be statues, hospitality, higher education, even letters and things like that. Anything that you think it would be useful to have a conversation with, we can bring that to life. It's only recently that some of our clients have sort of started saying, well, wouldn't it be good if people could have conversation with other objects, could do other things? So rather than being completely sort of playful and fun, if it had really sort of practical, tangible outcomes. And this is kind of where we are today. Wouldn't it be interesting and fun and also informative if you could have a conversation with your waste bin? The system itself works really simply. You scan a QR code on the bin or on the object. That enters you into a two-way conversation that uses AI in the back end, but it's more about the conversation. The conversation primarily via SMS, can use Facebook, can also use Messenger, but it gives you an opportunity to have those conversations with those objects. It means that these conversations are easily accessible, they're convenient, they're place-based, you don't need an app, you don't have to go to the website, and they're always in the moment. So just using this as an example here, you use your mobile phone, it doesn't even need to be a smartphone, to scan the QR code or just to text an SMS number. That object then replies to you, and then you start that conversation with it. So I think this is sort of really important. I have all sorts of issues myself with waste and recycling, and mostly putting the bin out in the morning. It's great if my neighbours are up early and they put their bins out, because I look out the window and I see what bins they put out on that day, and I race down and put it out. And if I'm lucky, I get there before the bin men have arrived. If I'm the first to leave in the morning, I will just walk off, won't put the bins out, and kind of rely either on my wife or kids to do that, or come home and find the bin hasn't been collected. I sometimes play the bin game around weekends and bank holidays, where sometimes I will just sort of nudge a bin closer to the edge of the drive and see if any of my neighbours will follow suit. But I think using what we've got here, you can basically turn your waste bin or any bin, public bin, community bin, kind of into an Alexa. So rather than having to build, Alexa skills, websites, apps and things like that, any object, any bin can enable you as a gateway to have that conversation there. So moving on to a few examples of where this is working. Wandsworth Council in London, they're using this to make sort of fly tipping hotspots interactive. So DEFRA reported in 2019 that fly tipping incidents are increasing massively. So there's about 1 million incidents per year, and this is up 2% on previous years. And the cost to clear fly tipping across the UK is just under £11 million. So Wandsworth thought if they could put signage in these fly tipping hotspots and encourage people to report incidents of fly tipping, encourage people to inform on people who they'd seen, so number plates, people perhaps sort of well, basically anything that they could tell the council about who was doing this. But they also thought it could become a deterrent as well, just having the signs in those hotspots as a way of reducing the number of incidents of people there. This is still a fairly new implementation there, but they've created this channel there. They've created the deterrent. They're automating the process now, so these reports are going straight into the team in the council. And what they've seen so far is, since it's been live, about 70 people have now been reported for fly tipping in those areas. It's automated the process through. They've had about 264 different interactions with the system there. And the aim is that it's now sort of having a knock-on effect and saving staff time there and allowing them to maybe follow the prosecutions, but in preventing the fly tipping, it's freeing them to do other things that are much more important. Moving on, the University of British Columbia, they've got a sort of very different implementation there. They've made all of their recycling points interactive. So the students there can scan the QR codes or text an SMS number, have conversations with the recycling bins. And these bins are providing information and advice on what they can recycle, what happens with the recycling, information about the campus there, sort of how much waste is being produced and what they're doing to tackle climate change as a result of that. As well as having interactive recycling points, they're putting sort of tent cards on tables in the cafeteria. And again, another new implementation. This has been live for about 2 months, but they're already seeing the signs of behavior change, the students recycling in a different way, being a lot more responsible about the way that they do their recycling. And again, it's raising awareness of what's going on and getting buy-in from the students there. So they've automated a lot of the responses to the queries that are coming in. So again, it's taking away staff time there. They're getting the whole student community involved there. And again, it's just having a very positive effect on the community there. So students getting involved, the campus is a lot cleaner there. So they've said now, based on a survey, that 81% of users there are really keen to improve their recycling habits. They've had over 1,000, well, 1,225 to be exact, interactions there with those objects. So it is reaching a very large number of people. I think the final one, and I think this is the most exciting, Scottsdale in Arizona. They're kind of known as a city of innovation in the US. So they're most definitely thought leaders, and they're very keen to try sort of new and exciting technologies there. And I think this is why this is my favorite and probably the most exciting project that's being worked on at the moment. This is the first local authority anywhere in the world that is actually enabling domestic bins, in addition to all of the other things, so the public bins, but the domestic bins as well. So here, the QR codes and the numbers are being put on people's domestic waste bins and allowing people to have those conversations. So it's linking via APIs into their back office systems. So people can ask the bin, can you tell me what day my bin is going to be collected? What type of collection is it going to be? It can give information around bank holidays or holidays in the US and different collection times. It's also being used to allow people to query the bins about what can I recycle? Can I recycle milk bottles? What do I need to do? What kind of waste can I not recycle here? So it's a two-way conversation. And I think this is probably the closest where we've got to that sort of Alexa type model, where you're having those conversations with the bins. And as I said, it's in the moment. It's when you go out to put something in the bin, you can actually have the conversation there and then. The expected outcomes from this project, definitely going to reduce staff time massively. Dealing with queries around missed bins, around bank holidays is an absolutely massive problem. It's probably the biggest pain in the backside for local authorities in the UK as it is in the US as well. So being able to respond to those, to automate a lot of those FAQs is saving a huge amount of staff time internally. It's helping with the behavioral change as well, because the aim is that people will start to recycle more responsibly, will get more involved in the initiative. And again, that goes on to reduce the amount of bins there that are being rejected because of polluted waste. It also helps with the geolocation, because the bins, each bin, we know roughly where it is. It's helping, understand what's going on in different areas. And again, it enables a local authority to provide help and support to communities in different areas that may have different needs. So I think in terms of all of the stuff that we're doing, this is probably the most exciting, because it addresses very, very specific issues that significantly reduce cost, help improve service provision, and ultimately improve the lives of the citizens there. So, as I said, the aim with this was to reach a really, really wide audience, so the widest possible audience. So having the waste bins enabled means you're kind of reaching into the homes of everyone in the local area there. It's super, super accessible. So it is on all of the time, 24/7, 365. And it's also that in the moment engagement there. You're not relying on people to go to the app and download it and get involved, to go through to a website. It's really convenient. When you're there, you can engage straight away. Reducing staff time and costs, freeing people up to do other things, helping with the behavioural change. It's giving you a real-time dashboard as well on the back end, so you can see, if there's incidents of missed bins, if lots of people in a certain area are starting to have these conversations, you can understand where they're having them, what they're having them about, and also the sentiment that's going on behind that. So again, this helps improve community relations, that two-way correspondence with citizens. But it can also be used for so much more. These conversations, although they can be about waste and recycling and things associated with that, they can be about a whole load of other things there. So embedded in those conversations, you can ask your community different questions. These questions can be about certain places and dates and times. So, for example, asking your community how they felt about the Queen's funeral, what they think about the recent bad weather, is flooding a major issue for them. Again, those conversations as people interact can change. It gives you the ability to tell your story, so to provide information and instruction to residents. Probably not in a wasting setting, but being able to introduce visitors to your local area, encourage people to go to different locations or events and activities is something that you could do with this. Definitely helps your community report problems. So again, as a channel for providing feedback into the system about service failures, it works beautifully for that. I think we've mentioned about the behavioural change. Not only can it actually encourage people to change their behaviour and do different things, it's a really vital tool in measuring how that is having an impact. So as a survey tool and understanding what's going on there. It can also be used to convert customers. I know revenue generation, again, is a priority for local authorities up and down the country. So using this as a way to promote local events and activities, maybe paid for things. So having a conversation with your bin about garden waste collections and encouraging people to come in and actually pay for a garden waste bin online. It can help you with all of those and your priorities. So it's not just talking rubbish, it's talking about everything that's going on in the community there. So I guess if you could ask your bin a question, I'd be interested if people can put in the chat or the questions, what kind of question would you ask your bin? It sounds like a really silly question, but there's a whole load of useful information that you can get from those conversations. So it would be great to hear how you think something like this could be used. Maybe you have some questions for me as well. So I think at that point, I'll kind of open it up to questions and see where we go from there. So you'll have to bear with me quickly as I go through the chat and see how many questions we've got there. So one of the questions come up is can we speak to residents where English isn't a second language, or where English is a second language? Yeah, You can. The system itself is really quite smart. So when someone engages, it enables you to have a conversation in their language. So it does a lot of the translations on the fly, but we work with local authorities to ensure that those translations actually make sense. So we've got a implementation in Wales, where the conversations can be had in Welsh and also in English, and again, two-way conversations there. That's less around sort of waste and recycling, but it's more about the local area. So it's encouraging residents to get out and find out about their local area. There's a question here from Tom. Do I put disposable coffee cups in here or not? Yeah, I mean, that would be a great question, because I never know the answer to that question myself. I kind of make assumptions that you don't put the lids in, but you can put the cups in, and on the basis that you clean them out. But again, I think one of the issues with UK in particular is there's different rules everywhere you go about the recycling. I know in my local area, you can put certain things into a waste bin that you can't where my parents live. I know if I go to the office in London, there's different recycling rules there. So having the ability to query where you are in the moment, I think would be really useful. Another question here, where does the rubbish in here end up? Again, great question. I think if people understood more about the ongoing chain and where the rubbish did end up, I think maybe it would change people's behaviour there. Could you use it to report when a bin is full or overflowing? Yes, it is being used in that sort of situation there. I think one of the examples I can give there is dog waste bins. We've got a implementation live at the moment where people can provide that kind of feedback. So if you see a dog waste bin that is overflowing, again, scan that code and actually make a report there. There are loads of questions in here, so bear with me. I'll see if I can scroll up to some of the other ones there. So how else is Hello Lamppost being used to fight climate change and help government achieve net zero? So I think this is one of the biggest areas where it's being used. We've got a really good project on the go at the moment with the Environment Agency, where this is being used to help people with flood awareness and preparedness for flooding. So what they've done there is they're doing an awful lot of sort of infrastructure work on flood defences, both sort of rivers and tidal defences too. So they've set it up so you have the ability to have a conversation with the flood defence, or if there's building work going on, it could be around the hoardings that are there. That conversation is being used to provide helpful information. It's also being used to provide guidance and support, but it's also to gather feedback from people there to understand how much they know about what's going on and what they need to do there. So there's lots of implementations up and down the UK at the moment, encouraging people to get involved in that initiative. So I think that's a really good example of where this is being used. And just in sustainability across the UK in lots of different areas, it's being used. Hello Lamppost was actually used at the last COP event. So I think it was COP 26 was the last one. And again, that was for the delegates there as a survey tool to understand from the delegates at the event how much they understood, what they thought of the event, and to provide the feedback there as well. Keep going down. Can you please take yourself outside before you get full and smelly? Again, fantastic question. I wish it could. I don't think we're quite there yet with AI and robotics, but wouldn't it be great if the bin could actually sort of unpack itself, take it outside, and so on? Next question. So it feels like a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I'm not sure that that's true. I mean, this problem does exist, so maybe you could sort of follow up with something a little bit more specific there. Personally, for me, having the ability to query it, I mean, I'm always around the bank holidays having to go online, to go to a website and find out what's going on there. I know it's not really the end of the world, but having something that's a lot more convenient would certainly make my life an awful lot easier. The ability to have that two-way interaction. I mean, as a citizen, I don't interact with my council very much at all. I think waste and recycling is probably the only area where I do. So I yeah, it's difficult to comment. So I'll have a look if you follow up with another question there. The implementation costs for something like this. It isn't actually that expensive to do something like this. The conversations are sort of pretty similar across the whole area. They can be tailored sort of ward by ward or street by street if you need them to. But doing something like this isn't massively expensive. I think the return on investment with something like this, when you think about the increase in, yeah, well, the behavioural change elements, actually getting people to recycle effectively, I think are pretty good. The reduction in phone calls about missed bins, the FAQs there, I think it will more than pay for itself. Costs for this do sort of change depending on the number of different sort of locations and bins and conversations that you have there. But again, it'd be something I'd be keen to sort of follow up with and have a look. So there's a question here about engagement there. And how do you aggregate feedback? I think I mentioned earlier on, there's in the back end of the system, there's something that we call Engagement Hub there, where you can see in real time the queries that are coming in. It analyzes the sentiment of those queries as well. It enables you to intervene where necessary. So you have access to that all of the time, again, 24/7. And again, using the APIs, if you need to integrate it into a CRM system, that can take place as well. Okay, so the follow-up question to the one before says, our uptake on a waste app was low across all of Greater Manchester. Could you share the research that shows the desire from the public and their usage when rolled out? So I think with all of these things, I think apps, absolutely, definitely there. I always find it's a bit of a pain getting an app, installing an app, and then using it all of the time. I think one of the examples I would use here is parking. When I park my car, having to download an app if I don't already have it installed, get it all set up and everything else is a pain. There's been times when I've moved my vehicle just because trying to get an app is particularly difficult there. I think this is one of the reasons why this as an alternative way of doing it is good. As I said, I know councils have built apps and they don't get great use and adoption. I know that some councils have invested in Alexa skills, and again, I don't know how much they're being used, but not everyone has an Alexa, not everyone has a smart speaker. This, again, we're seeing pretty good take up. It depends on where this is being used and how. But having that on the bin so you can engage with it directly. I mean, it could even be used as a way of signposting people to get in the app and downloading the app so you can be a little bit more proactive there. But again, we're seeing quite good take up in different areas there. So I think one of the best ones that we can sort of share is in Sydney, Australia. They were using it for a public consultation around Sydney Harbour. One of the objectives there was to engage with the local indigenous population there. So they put talking objects in the places where they go. These objects were benches, were lampposts, were landmarks there. And over the course of the consultation there, they had about 56,000 interactions with those objects. I think in terms of the waste and recycling, we've got a little way to go yet to prove how engaging that's going to be. I mean, early indications are good in the areas. Scottsdale is going to be going live any moment in time. So I think that's going to be live probably in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting. I can report back on that afterwards. Let's keep going down the questions. So yeah, there was a question there. I think if the interface is on the bin and not the app, engagement would increase. That's what we're seeing in other areas. Absolutely, definitely. It is in that moment, in the place engagement. It's just super, super convenient. So recent waste app launched in North Norfolk has seen a substantial uptake with a lot of unsolicited positive press. Again, we're seeing very similar things here. I think one of the added benefits of using something like Hello Lamppost, it gets fantastic press and PR. Pretty much without exception, all of the places where it's been implemented, the press absolutely love it. So the case study that I mentioned earlier on in Wales, they had ITV News go down and cover it there. I mean, there aren't any talking waste bins at the moment, either public or residential in the UK. I think the feedback you'd get from something like that would be incredible, and we're seeing it all over the place. So we've been covered on, Wired, lots of different press, Daily Mail, and so on. So I think there's a great opportunity there for something like this. Someone here saying that they're an EV driver and having an app to use a charger has up and down sides. It's a pain if you can't get the app to work. Again, I can see that. I think one of my favourite implementations of Hello Lamppost is up in Scotland. They've been putting it in suicide hotspots, encouraging people to have conversations about their mental health and well-being there. The interaction with those objects has actually been pretty low. The outcomes off the back of it has been super, super high. So we've actually managed to find help and support for the people there that need it most. So encouraging them to seek out the help that they need or to provide the help that they need. One of the things about those hotspots is they can be in sort of very rural locations. So places where you don't have good 3G or 4G coverage or none at all. Because this is using SMS and just sort of standard mobile phones, the coverage is so much greater. So again, in areas where talking bins may not work because of the 4G coverage, this could work well. So again, I think this ties in with the EV stuff as well, is having something that isn't app-based can be a positive boon for something like this. Interesting, we've also been involved with some EV vehicle stuff. We had an electric car driving around with a massive QR code on the side where you could scan that and have a conversation with the car and find out about all of the initiatives and the technology that was driving that. I wasn't prepared for quite so many questions. Quick one. Yeah, so we are on procurement frameworks. We are on G-Cloud. So again, there's a great service description there if you wanted to find out more. So if you just go to the government digital marketplace, you can find it there. Another question. So interfaces on the bin. Is take up temporary? I think it depends on the object that you put it on and how many times people are engaging with that object. I think with the bin there, if you need to ask it about waste and recycling. So again, all of the time, I'm kind of questioning myself about, can I recycle batteries, small electrical goods, coffee cups, which was mentioned earlier on. I think because you could potentially be engaging a lot of the time with those objects, it gives you the ability to ask lots of different questions and keep that flow of people coming back through. I think one of the things that we're thinking about now is how some of those messages could also be push messages as well. So again, being able to push a message once someone has engaged, reminding them about the bank holiday collections and changes to collection dates and things. So I think there's an opportunity there. But absolutely agree, the cost needs to be justified in the benefits that's coming out the other end. Doing something as a trial, I think, would be a really good way of doing this. So again, if it's something that's of interest, we can follow up after this and have that conversation. We would just love to have a UK local authority doing something like this as well. It's unusual for the US to be so far ahead in this kind of thing there. But again, we're generating data from that, and it'd be good to replicate something like that in the UK. I think I've answered all of the questions that have gone through. As I said, there was quite a few, so if I've missed any, feel free to post again quickly. But I'm also aware that we're coming up on time. But yeah, thank you very much indeed for this. Any final questions, pop them in now. We can answer after the event, but I think we're just about up on time. So thank you very much. And it kind of feels like I've rambled a bit here. And I did say right at the start I'd be talking trash, and definitely an awful lot of rubbish. So hopefully it's been interesting and given you a few ideas and food for thought. And yeah, would love to speak to you after this. It's just a few more questions coming in. That's great. Thank you very much. We'll call it a wrap there. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.